Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Woo! Here we go, man. Here we go. The NHL Trade Deadline 2024 is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. And it's probably going to be as underwhelming as you think. So thanks for showing up. But you know what? It is what it is, right, man? I mean, like, this is just becoming the norm, I think, is GMs getting ahead of it the week of deadline. And it's like, it doesn't surprise me. I think it's just the new norm. But, man, this day used to be a lot different back in the day when it was like only Trade Center was the source. Yeah. Like, there wasn't even Twitter, right?
That's it. I remember that. Good times. Good times.
The good old days, right?
Yeah.
So thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We have some guests joining us. And in fact, in a very few short minutes, our first guest will be joining us with no introduction needed, but I'm going to give him one anyway. My man, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet, Mr. GQ himself, going to be joining us in a few short moments, ladies and gentlemen. Kyle Bukauskas of Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada. If you haven't heard of him, you probably don't watch hockey. So why are you here? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I love you guys. Good chunk of you guys already tuning in to start off the live broadcast here. We're actually live on Twitter and YouTube today. So I threw us out there a little bit into the Twitter realm today, just for the heck of it, because we can, using the software that we do. So Shaner, thanks for jumping on, buddy. And
always.
How's your world going over there? It looks pretty sick still, from what I can see.
Very sick, very sick. We're rolling. I was on with Tony and Craig Button recently, and Craig dubbed me the scooper. So we'll roll with that for today. I got Twitter ready to rock. I got alerts on for Friedman, for Saravelli, and LeBrun. So if anything happens, hopefully, I'll scoop it up for you.
Well, yeah, you have to now. I mean, if Craig Button gave you that name, which how are you feeling about the name? How are you feeling about that nickname right now?
I think there's worse things to be called. I'll take it. I'll take it. Coming from Craig, you know what? That's an honor. So, I'll take it.
He's all right. Super. He's all right. Craig Button, eh? But you know what? I got to say, man, like, Tony was really determined to get the Sick podcast rocking and have it be entertaining basically every night. And he's really accomplishing that, man. Like Max Lapierre joining on, and, Eric Engels coming on Mondays. And obviously you got Stu on Fridays. George Larac makes appearances. You got Craig Button in there. You got Pierre Maguire in there. Like, he's got a lineup now, man. It's becoming a pretty fun show, and you can see Tony's enjoying it too.
That's it. No, the Sick network is growing rapidly, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, we got the eye test as well with Pierre and Jimmy Murphy, which is a great show. I got my little show there with Grant and Rocco at Recruits Draftcast. So anything draft related, prospect related, it's a lot of fun to talk about. I'm honestly getting more and more excited for the 2024 draft. It's going to be a fun one. Honestly, it's going to rival this last one. I think
really
it's got more depth, actually. I'll just go out and say that. Obviously last draft, all the talk was about the top three and Bedard and all that. But beyond that, sure, you had, the Will Smith, the Mitchkov and all that, but really it kind of died down, right? But this draft, I mean, if you're picking in the first round, you're getting a solid player. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, I guess because we're on that topic, and we will actually get to trade talk in a moment, or lack thereof, for the next 4 hours. I don't know. But, I mean, we're going to have a little bit of fun. So that's why we jump on. That's why we do this, right? So thank you all for tuning in, by the way. And if you want to support this show today, please do hit that like button. And I assume a handful of you guys are subscribers, just because, you guys are the first ones to find out that this broadcast is even going live. Is when you guys are on YouTube finding out about that. So do hit that button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And in just a few short seconds, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet, Mr. GQ, will be joining us. And I think he's in Montreal, because last thing I saw on his Instagram was that he was in the city. So we'll see what he's got, some insights on some trades that have already went down. And we may have another special guest. We're actually just waiting to hear back from Eric Engels, but don't tell Kyle. I hope he's not watching right now, because it's supposed to be a surprise. So I'm going to be sending the link to Double E It's double E right now. So I will send that over to him, Shaner. And then in the meantime, you want to give us your thoughts on what's the biggest trade you've heard so far that you've enjoyed hearing?
Oh, it's been a lot. There's been a lot. I think if I were to pick a favorite, I really, really like the Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat trade.
Yeah.
Just a good old fashioned 1-for-1, two young players who kind of fit better in their new teams now, right? It's like, okay, they weren't struggling per se. Sure, Bowen Byram had injury concerns, and he's not been lucky in that department. And obviously, he's in Cale Makar's shadow, but I think he's going to be such a better fit in Buffalo, and Middlestat slotting into that 2C in Colorado is just perfect. I think that the timeline, right? He's like, what, 26, 27, something like that. It's Charmaine, hello. I think the fit is just perfect there. So I think that's been my favorite trade so far, but there's been some more wonky ones that have also piqued my interest. The most recent being Kuznetsov going to Carolina for, I believe, a 3rd round pick in 2025. I'm not a fan of this trade whatsoever. I hate this trade for Carolina. Listen, Kuznetsov is a Stanley Cup champion. You can't take that away from him. But point is, Carolina does not have Alexander Ovechkin. Okay, let's just go out and say it. They just don't have him. And I agree that Carolina needed to address their centers, right? Sure, they have Aho on the top line, but after that, it's like Jack Drury, Stahl, and KK. You're not going to win a cup with that. Let's be real here. So addressing the center position was among their needs, but getting Kuznetsov is not the solution. Come on. Like, what the hell? This guy was just waived. You know what I mean? Like, he's not even an NHLer anymore. Like, sure, he has the talent. He has the potential. He could fit in well. I just don't like this trade at all. I think it's so stupid.
Well, I want to know what our friend who's about to join us in a minute here, he's ready to rock. And actually, I think he's in the same exact location he was for the trade deadline 2 years ago in Montreal.
Right on.
I'm going to bring him on. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my friend from Sportsnet, Kyle Bukauskas, Mr. GQ himself, joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Kyle Bukauskas. How you doing, brother? I think we're getting him now. He's coming in.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We got you.
You got me?
He's coming.
I don't know what I'm doing with my hand there.
I think we got you, Kyle.
In the picture. Hi. Got me? Hi, boys. How you doing?
Doing good.
I don't know. Did you hear your introduction? It was pretty epic, man. I don't know if you heard it.
It was, it started to cut out partway through there. So knowing you, I wouldn't expect anything less. So thank you. I saw the picture of us there in Buffalo, and I was going, I don't know what I'm doing with my hand.
Okay.
Good to see you guys.
Well, yeah, good to see you, man. So what you were doing was you were pointing to me, and then you were pointing back to the camera as I'm like rambling on about nothing into the camera. And then I got your little GQ shot here too, because I thought it was a good, clear picture of you. So there we are, man. So,
Calgary skyline in behind there.
Is that Calgary? Okay, right on.
That is Calgary, yeah.
I dig it. Okay, so it looks like you're in Montreal again, right?
I'm here. Yep, Brassard with nothing going on. Team's off, so it's been there's youth soccer going on the turf here behind us. That's been thrilling. That's about it. Adam Nicholas, I think, is on the ice with his kid here, getting some reps in, but otherwise pretty quiet so far.
Okay, well, I haven't got an answer from another guest that I want to bring on, who I think you've met him a couple of times, Kyle. You've spoken with him, but I haven't got confirmation if he's going to be able to join us. But I will find out shortly if that's the case. So in Brassard today, this is different than the last couple of deadlines, right? Because the Canadiens actually had a game on the night of deadline day, and that's why, like you said, there's just no action going on. They have the day off today, right? So a little different this year.
A little bit, yeah. Like they're just coming home from a long road trip, right? As you guys know, so give the players the day off from practice and all that. It's funny, like the Leafs are, like the players are here in town too, but they just went back to back last night and Wednesday, so they're off today. So in terms of any action on the ice here in Montreal on deadline day, there won't be much of. It'll be a little more.
Kyle's kind of cutting in and out a little
Yeah.
bit, so forgive him for a minute here. But
the team boardrooms, the Leafs, there's a little more going on.
So you're kind of cutting out a little bit, Kyle. We have you now, but it does seem to be kind of cutting in and out a little bit. So if I cut you off or anything, just let me know. But I did hear what you had to say, though. You were saying how
the Wi-Fi here.
The Wi-Fi, yeah, like no one's even there. How can the Wi-Fi be so spotty? What's going on? But that's okay.
I blame Eric Engels.
Are you looking at Eric Engels right now? Is Eric?
I don't have eyes on him. I don't have eyes. He's somewhere. He's here. He is here.
Okay,
yeah.
So I'm gonna have to
spoil the one that's giving you the cold shoulder. Or?
Okay, well here he is because I did send.
Oh.
He's not giving me the cold shoulder, but he said it was a maybe. So I was going to surprise you and say that Eric was going to join us, but you might even just walk by and you can just grab him and just be like, "Hey,
yeah,
come on the show."
Yeah, maybe we'll just do it that way. Anyway, if I see him, I'll wave him down.
Yeah, do it. All right. So Kyle's going to work on that for us. So that's great. So as far as today goes, man, majority of the moves have gone down. Is this just becoming a trend? Because years ago, I was saying this to Shane, that the trade deadline, it was Trade Center. There was no Twitter. Trade Center on television was basically the only source of information live that you had on trades. And most of them seem to go down on deadline day. It's just becoming a trend in recent years that everything's going down during the week, because it seems to be a regular thing now.
Yeah, it just seems like the GMs are a little more aggressive. They want or what they want to give up, and when they find the right deal, they make it, and certainly it just seems like, what was it, the salary cap and the ability to make stuff happen, to fit everything in where the ceiling is, pushed teams as years have gone on here to be more aggressive and to not miss out on the players that you want to target. I'm sure that plays a role too. And I think, again, it's just the evolution of general manager dealings and the way, the league goes about making transactions where, you're right. As I say, it was always, it seemed like the weight was on until today, and then everything happened and you turned on your TV to get the majority of the information or flip the radio on. Now right. it's much different. It's almost, today's like the recap show, as opposed to all the fresh stuff. So I still could see a few more things between now and 3:00, but a lot of the big game hunting, it feels, have already been done. Certainly, like with last night, the Gensel deal happening between Pittsburgh and Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what do you make of that? I just caught Crosby's presser from last night, and that was the most upset I've ever seen Sidney Crosby in his NHL career, Kyle. It looked like he was just down in the dumps. That is not a side of Sidney Crosby that I think we've seen before, man.
Yeah, certainly not often, right? And I mean, it's tough. Your season's spiraling out of control. He just got, what did it end up being? 5-6-0 last night. They lost.
6-0, yeah.
Which stapled the light of your mind 10 minutes after the game, and he's just lost the one winger that's kind of been a constant for him since, I guess, their cup run in 2017. It's been Gensel and Crosby and somebody else on that line the majority of their time together. So can you blame them? They're just, the human element takes over. How can you be and in any way, not even, obviously not happy, but just somewhat of a neutral expression? Obviously, you're going to be disappointed and frustrated with where things are at, just with the team and the overall situation there. So, I mean, clearly they felt that there was an opportunity to jump on, moving him out for some motivated buyers and to get some younger pieces back the other way. And I really like the fact that Carolina was the one that stepped up and done it, because I mean they've got a history, certainly under the ownership of Tom Dundon, that they don't like to pay for rentals at this time of year. But you look at last year against Florida in the Eastern Conference Final. I worked that series, and
Just be patient with the feed, guys. It's just cutting out a bit. So forgive us here.
I was looking forward to hearing.
They just couldn't score.
Yeah.
Possibly. Did you lose me there?
The last we heard was that you said they couldn't score. So,
but it's true. They couldn't.
Yeah. The software is really
now?
good. Yeah, you're good now. It's kind of still a little bit choppy, but we'll do our best, man. That's what happens when the internet.
Okay. Yeah, if you can
got
hear
you.
me, I was. Yeah. I just said they just need scoring, right? They haven't had it in years past when get tighter, and Jake Guentzel certainly helps that. So I really like the Carolina point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take a look at the haul. Okay, so this. Let me just. I got to change websites here. So give me a second. I want to show the actual return for Guentzel because it's quite the haul, guys. So
yeah,
I'm gonna bring this up here for our viewers to see, and Kyle, if you can see this as well. But for Carolina to acquire Jake Guentzel and Ty Smith, you've got Michael Bunting, Vil Kovunen, Cruz Lucius, Vasily Ponomarov. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces for Guentzel. 7 pieces for Guentzel, Kyle. That's quite the payment. Carolina's pretty serious here, hey? I don't know if you could hear me. Okay, so temporarily, I'm going to take Kyle out of the broadcast just for a second. So question mark.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll get him back on in a second. But we're trying to flag down Eric Engels in the Montreal Canadiens practice facility because Kyle's going to rejoin us. I think he's good now, but we'll make sure. Kyle, give us a wave to make sure your feed is okay because it looks like you're still frozen. I don't know. It's a little bit choppy on his side. Usually his feed's pretty good. Like last couple of years has been totally fine. So it's kind of funny that it worked out. But
the beauty of live streaming. Yeah. You got to deal with
live streaming
with the stuff.
Well, that's how it goes. Okay.
Push through. Yeah, there we go.
Let's try again. So I think we have you now,
Sorry,
buddy.
guys.
No big deal. We'll do our best. Some are suggesting just doing audio, but I'm like, well, we'll do our best and see how it goes. I got one of my old friends from ball hockey here asking a question. What's up? Who's winning for Saturday? Because the Leafs and Canadiens are playing. Well, you know the answer to that. The Canadiens, I don't know. I really don't know what this
Do they want to win?
I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22 in a way. I'll take Kyle out again for a second. It's just really a little bit choppy there on his side, but we're still waiting for you, Kyle. If you, I don't know if you want to move locations or something, but it seems like the Wi-Fi in the Bell Complex Sportif is a little rough.
I can attest to that. It's not good. I've been there twice now, and it's bad there. So
yeah,
well, I completely understand. Yeah.
So you're keeping your eye on Twitter.
Subban got traded, but it's Malcolm Subban, the goaltender, was dealt to Columbus for future consideration. So again, a minor trade, nothing crazy here.
I see it from Chris Johnston. Yeah, so he'll be assigned to the AHL Cleveland. So
yeah, Cleveland Monsters. That's mostly what we're going to see today. I feel just minor deals, little tweaks. But,
right.
Hey. Trades are trades, you know? Gotta love it.
Yeah, I'm just going to text Kyle here, but while we're kind of working things out. Usually his feed is totally fine. Like he's been fine the last couple of years. So, we just talked about the Subban trade, which Malcolm Subban from the St. Louis the Columbus Blue Jackets acquired him from the St. Louis Blues.
Correct.
So he'll be going to the AHL Cleveland. But I'm just going to text. We actually do have another guest coming on soon. That's going to be Marc Dumont. Mark does a lot of live streaming, so I think his feed will be fine. But that being said, somebody asked about Anik earlier. We actually did try to get her on this morning. She had to cancel. She was actually, here it is from Wonderbra. That's a funny name. So Anik was supposed to join this stream today, but she had to work. She actually got called in for a last minute project. So just so you know, we did try to get her on, but but she's got other obligations, and we would totally respect that. But it looks like we might have Kyle back on. We're going to try to bring him on again, and persistence pays off sometimes on these live streams. So we're going to try to bring Kyle back on here and see how we do with Mr. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. I can hear his feed. We're just waiting for it to jump in here. Kyle, can you hear us? We're gonna have to tell someone to pay the cable bills at the Bell Complex Sportif. Hey, buddy, welcome back.
Yeah. Hey. CN Sport Company now. So
is CN hurting for money over there? What's going on? They got to pay the bills here, man.
Yeah, I got to figure it out. Enough money for the train tracks. They forgot to invest in the Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can hear you now. So that's great.
See
how long it lasts.
Yeah, that's shit. Yeah.
As Kyle says that, we're already starting to lose them again. But we'll keep trying. We're gonna keep trying, you guys. So somebody mentioned Jordan Eberle just signed a couple-year extension. No, he did not connect with the Wi-Fi at McDonald's. Don't worry. But Kyle, we can still hear you. You can still hear us. There's also a bit of a delay too. Forgive the awkward silence at at times, folks. We got Kyle trying to get his Wi-Fi together. Hey, Kyle, I got an idea. Can you still hear me?
Oh,
he's refreshing. Yeah, he's trying. He's like, I don't think she's going to work. So maybe we can get Eric Engels to get his phone to try the Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah, if he's also there, I'm worried it's probably not going to be good either. Yeah, the Wi-Fi there is awful. I remember. I had to go. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, we did just have Kyle Bukauskas on very briefly, my buddy Kyle from Sportsnet, and he's at the Canadiens practice facility right now as we speak, trying to join us, but clearly the Wi-Fi is not cooperating, so we're unfortunately going to have to keep him off air for now. But I just asked Kyle if he can go grab Eric Engels because they're in the building together. So he said 1 second. He's going to try to go find them and see what we can do.
Nice.
So we're waiting on our other guests, but we might have Eric Engels joining us and Kyle Bukauskas together in one shot. So we'll see what we come up with, and Kyle's going to do his best to do that, man. So while we keep checking out trades and the ones that have already happened, I think I already brought it up a minute ago, but we can look at some other deals that went down there, Shanner. So you liked the Casey Middlestat trade. I got to ask you, though, about the former Canadiens, Joel Edmondson going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, buddy. Did it make your skin crawl or what? What happened?
Well, it's funny enough because now they're in Montreal and his first game with the Leafs should be against the Habs. So
I didn't even realize that.
That's going to suck.
That sucks.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, can you fault them? This guy bullied them in the 2021 playoffs. Like, he was just cross-checking them into the boards all the time. It was beautiful. Yep. And
I'm going to bring Kyle back. And it looks like Kyle, sorry to interrupt you, Shane, but it looks like your feed's a little bit better, Kyle.
Yes, I think we made a critical adjustment here. Went to an IT specialist in this place, i.e. Hugo Regenball, our fantastic camera operator for Sportsnet in the Montreal Bureau, and we may have found a solution here.
Got one here, guys.
Too soon.
Shaner, you got something to break for us? What do you got, buddy?
According to Pierre LeBrun, Tyler Toffoli is heading to Winnipeg.
Ooh.
We don't have the return yet, but he's joining Sean Monahan, and the Jets are going for it.
Whoa,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, this is something. Okay,
there we go. We got some trades. Let's do it.
This is great. Because in years past where you felt the Jets were kind of close and Cheveldayoff kind of had a history of tiptoeing around the outside, making a couple adept moves to but like Sean Monahan and now Tyler Toffoli here, if this is in fact what's going on.
Yeah.
Love that for them.
Sorry, I gotta specify it's Darren Dreger that broke it. Pierre LeBrun just reposted. That's my bad. Shout out to Darren Dreger. Gotta give the credit where credit is due. He broke it.
Well, they're co-workers. It's not a big deal. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's a huge ad for Winnipeg. That's awesome. I like the way they've played most of this year, and he's only gonna. I mean, we all watched what Toffoli did for Montreal during their run in 2021, and
heck yeah,
and it had been having a great year in New Jersey despite the team not succeeding to the level that they had hoped. So I think he's got plenty of good hockey to help Winnipeg here. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, the top six, it's like Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Velarde, and then Monahan, Ehlers, Toffoli. That's really good.
Yeah,
that could do some damage there. I like it.
Right, and then you've got one of the better third lines in the game, with Lowry and Appleton and Niederreiter that are just going to grind you and play with pace, and will chip in at the right times too. And you got a Vezina caliber goalie and a big mobile defense for the most part. So
I like it.
They're in good shape.
Kyle, I got to say, your feed is, I don't know what you did over there, man, but you're good as gold
Master
now.
Hugo. Yeah, this is like
better.
A whole new me.
The version we always knew was there. That's what we've come to expect from you the last couple of years. So who was it? So your camera guy from Sportsnet just went and fixed the Wi-Fi in the Canadiens practice facility?
No, he got me going on a different network. That didn't, yeah. So that one's because I feel last year or 2 years ago when we did this, I don't recall switching Wi-Fi and it was still fine. But anyway, you live and learn.
Yeah, no, you were good as gold the last couple of years. So I thought you were going to grab Eric to see if his phone was going to work better or something. That's what I thought you were doing.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's like last resort stuff.
Okay. Eric's too busy trying to figure out where David Savard's getting traded, so that's fine.
Yeah. You think he's going to get traded?
I don't think. I don't know. Like it seems like a high price, and
right.
If they haven't paid it by now, I mean, unless it's going to come in last minute, hard to know. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like Eric said, right? They've set it a first round pick, and there's no incentive for Kent to make the deal now. Like he's not a rental. I mean, and the players made it clear he wants to stay now. Like he doesn't have any contractual control over that.
Yeah,
he just loves being in Montreal for reasons beyond just playing here. There's the family aspect as well, and you totally get that. But I think it's the price to pay, and having one extra year, maybe there's not enough teams in the mix to drive the price to where Kent Hughes wants it to be. So for those reasons, I can see him sticking around past 3:00.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think it would have gotten done already. So expect David to be a Hab. That's where I'm at.
So what about guys like Kovacevic, a guy with a super low cap hit? Jake Allen obviously still has a year left on his deal, but again, if somebody wanted Allen by now, I mean, goaltenders are pretty scarce, right, guys? So don't you feel like somebody might have made a play for him right now, or maybe they're just kind of lowballing at the last minute and see if Kent Hughes bites? But I don't think I think Kent Hughes is just he's really confident in his plan, and he's just going to stick to it by the looks of it. Yeah,
he's just like there's his rental asset was Sean Monahan, and he took care of that a while ago. Jake Allen also has another year, so like for him, I don't see there's any reason today why he needs to be picking up the phone and calling anybody. He can wait for the calls to come in for him, and if the offer matches what he's looking for, then you have that conversation, and of course there's always a chance that happens. But I'm just especially if things stay status quo on the goaltending front, how they navigate kind of the rest of the year. I thought there was some real raw, honest comments from Jake Allen after his start in Nashville earlier this week about kind of going like, you guys will know kind of how I'm feeling once we get past 3:00, like one way or another. just to have it kind of settled. And because he's the one, like he's the older guy that's got kids and a family and all that. Like, they're not moving Sam Montembeault and Caden Primo just is in a different phase of his life. So of the three guys that this whole ordeal weighs most heavily on, no question, it's Jake Allen. So and he's been just a terrific, I think, kind of soldier through it, for lack of a better term, and that he's made the starts when called upon. As his numbers been great this year, no, but I believe in a lot of times he's at least given the team a chance to win, and at least publicly he's said all the right things and hasn't done anything to throw more gasoline on the fire. So for those reasons, I hope there's some tension eased and just the chance to kind of take a breath once today is done for him and his family.
Yeah, Jake Allen's been a soldier, man. And honestly, Kyle, since you and I were in Buffalo here together, that was Jake Allen's best game of the season against the Sabres. He had a .973 save percentage against the Sabres that night that you and I were there, man. It
was dynamite. And then that was also, and we mentioned David Savard, that was the night he busted his hand. He made 13 block shots in 12 seconds.
I was behind the net for that shift.
Yes, so, you and I both.
Yeah, were you up to? Okay, so you and I went to meet after that period, I think. But oh my goodness, David Savard, that was the biggest buzz of that game against the Sabres in the building. I don't know if you recall that, but throughout the game, there really weren't many. There wasn't much going on, and then all of a sudden, David Savard is the shift of his life. He loses a skate blade, he blocks a shot, he gets injured. And that right there was something, man. But that was the most buzz we heard in the KeyBank Center all night, was that shift.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well deserved. It was that was a hell of an effort by him.
Yeah, it was just cool to see. It was I don't know. It rarely do those things kind of happen. But as far as the I'm gonna get the screen share up again because it does actually confirm just from Elliot Friedman's side of things. Oh, no, I don't have the right screen up, so never mind. I'm going to change that. But I just wanted to confirm that, yes, Sean Monahan. I'm going by a trade from a month ago. So Tyler Toffoli can confirm Tyler Toffoli from New Jersey to Winnipeg. And that's a nice get for Winnipeg, man. So you mentioned a minute. So Kyle, we were kind of talking about this Toffoli deal a minute ago, but I want to get your thoughts once again, just on the fact that, you mentioned a Vezina caliber goaltender in net, and what's the biggest question mark for Winnipeg right now? Is it still shoring up the defense, or how do you feel about their D and forward group as a whole going into the playoffs now?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little more help there, like in the 5-6 spot, just kind of beyond what they have. I mean, you've seen in years past, like Vegas, their blue line stayed relatively healthy through the playoffs. I think Colorado the year prior, they got pretty lucky, but oftentimes that's not the case, where you need bodies to step in because of how demanding those games are, particularly as someone on the backhand where you're like David Savard, blocking shots and doing anything you can to get the job done. And there's injuries that come from that, and sometimes you need to have extra bodies available. So I wouldn't mind the focus to kind of shift there, but you can't argue with what he's done if this is it for Chevy today. It's been a good little stretch here for them, where they faced some adversity kind of going in and coming out of the All-Star break, but they've come through that and put together some good results. Again, it's just you're looking at Dallas and Colorado. I mean, along with Winnipeg, that's your three likely in the Central Division. You're going to have to go through good teams at some point, but that's who potentially they could be dealing with kind of right from the get-go here once the playoffs start. So those are teams that can score, that are heavy, and at least on Dallas's front have great goaltending in Jake Ottinger. So you've got to be able to find ways to match that and exploit their weaknesses, and I think they've done a good job over this last little while in trying to do so.
Got a question from a viewer here, Kyle. Does a player come to mind for a great mid-game interview?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, you brought up Joel Edmondson. He's one.
Okay.
He was always a great, just thoughtful. That's always kind of the the hope, right? Especially the in game is tricky because you want to be respectful of where the player's mind is at. They're just in the middle of playing a game, and you don't want to get too big picture or philosophical with them, or too straight too far away from what's going on that night. So at least if you can kind of get just some kind of raw, honest, there's a bit of emotion behind it. He's a good one. Trying to think, because we don't do many in-game interviews like we used to, like in the intermissions and stuff, particularly on Saturdays. Those have kind of gone away a little bit over the years. Just they've figured to allocate the time better, whether it's studio doing something or us doing some storytelling from the rink, as opposed to interviewing a player, because we just highlighted it can be hard to get anything worthwhile out of them, and you can't fault them there. So it's tough to think.
What about your Shea Weber story? I remember that one from years ago.
Yes, yeah, that was right after the trade deadline. So what happened? That was PK Subban's first game back in Montreal after the trade, and that was one day after the deadline that year in 2017. The ceremony beforehand and crowd applauding him and the tear coming down his cheek. And so we interviewed Shea Weber in the intermission after the first period there. And I asked a really stupid question. And anyway, like the interview probably lasted, if most of those interviews last like 45 seconds, and you do 2 questions and you get out, like that was like maybe 14. He probably said a combined 5 words. And I was like, oh man, I felt bad. And anyway, carried that one with me for a few days, but then they played in New York that Saturday and then went out to Western Canada for their trip. And there was like an off day in Vancouver. And I went to him in the dressing room and said like, hey, Shea, I just wanted to apologize. Like, I was wrong of me to ask for you in that spot, and just the bad timing on the question there too. And he was like, no, I was so fired up because I took a penalty late in the first that I didn't like, and the team wasn't playing well. Like, I was just ready to like put my stick through the wall kind of thing. And then like our working relationship from that point on was never better. So I think that was kind of the one lesson for me, where if you have a tough moment like that, like they will happen from time to time, if you're able to address it with the player and just make sure there's no hard feelings, or there's no kind of confusion, or everyone's kind of on the same page of what happened, you're able to move on. And that's the best thing you can do to kind of keep that working relationship going, and in some cases it only makes it better.
Yeah, no doubt. Shane, you look like you got something to tell us over there.
I do. Nothing major, but Pat Maroon is looking to get his 4th cup, and he'll be doing so in Boston.
Oh wow!
So, the Bruins acquire Pat Maroon from the Wild.
That's a horribly good fit for Boston.
I like how you put it. Horribly good fit. Yeah.
He could be a good. I mean, is he an everyday guy on the 4th line at this point? I guess we'll see how they kind of slot him. I mean, but it's a great 13th option at worst, right? So we saw Boston do kind of more of the big swinging ads last year at the deadline. Doesn't always guarantee anything, as we saw, but I don't mind that one at all, just for kind of shoring things up and getting ready to play a heavier brand of hockey. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched any of the games they had against Toronto, the 2 this week. But boy, they look like they're okay. It's time to get ourselves ramped up and playing the style we're going to need to come the spring. They look really good.
That's it.
Well, yeah. I mean, like Boston just always seems ready. Toronto is always a bit of a question mark. It just seems like, and Boston swept the season series against the Leafs, and there you have it, right? But my question is, in terms of this Pat Maroon deal, is he still going to chirp Brad Marchand about how many more cups he's won than him?
Yeah. What does Jack Edwards think of this? Remember that controversy? Now he's got to he has to potentially get excited about a Pat Maroon goal for the Bruins. So how does he think of what does he make of this whole situation? I think that to me is the biggest story here now, that Pat Maroon's a member of the Bruins. What does that NESN broadcast look like now, and how does the first Pat Maroon goal cost out? I'm sure Jack will have fun with it, and hopefully they're able, if there's any lingering hard feelings there, that can get set aside.
Hopefully Pat just immediately waves to the booth, right?
Yes, that would be great. If that's like a Yager salute or something up at the booth in the Garden, that would be dynamite.
or like goes like this just to say like,
Yeah.
you know, which I guess that's been done. I mean, it's been done, that whole celly, right?
Yes.
Oh, man.
That would be great.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Kyle. So this you interviewed Slavkovsky maybe like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
I think it was mid game actually.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but
Yes, it was.
What do you make it made of his season and also your interactions with him? You know, in your role at Sportsnet.
Yeah, it's fun. Like it's weird. My first game here in Montreal this year was like first week of January. I don't think I've ever gone that far into a season without like doing a game here. So that first and foremost like felt weird and wrong for a whole host of reasons. So I hadn't spent a lot of time around the team. I remember, you know, the morning skate, and I just kind of chatting with a few guys around the room, and because you watch Slavkovsky and you see the development that's gone on certainly, and how he's playing, how he's using his body. The production obviously has gone up, and the fit that he's found there with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. But just in asking some of his teammates about him, like just what is he like, just in terms of being around the room and all the other stuff that we don't see when game time's going on or practice and what have you. And just got the sense, you know, in a hurry that this is a guy that is carrying himself much different. Like there's certainly there's weight off his shoulders now. There isn't the same young player that maybe was feeling a bit of the tension of having a tough first year as a first overall pick in a market like Montreal. There's just a different element of his personality that I think has always been there, but now you're just seeing it shine through as he's having more success on the ice, feeling more comfortable with the NHL, and just the belief that, okay, I can play in this league, and it's not as daunting as maybe it seemed a year previous. So I think that's gone just a long way in terms of how he operates day to day, 24/7, and it all translates to what we're seeing on the ice. So like whether it's our interviews with him, it seems like anytime he's doing anything with the media, like there's just, you see the big smile is back on him on a regular basis. He's having fun with some of the questions, and I think that's just a sign of somebody, a human being, let alone let's forget the whole hockey player side of a human being that's just in a good spot in his life right now. He's still a teenager for a little while longer here. So easily we forget that. That's been awesome to see, and I think that's been the biggest and most important story out of the Canadiens season here. Another one where they won't be going to the playoffs is just seeing the growth that's come in his game. That's got to be one of the most important parts of their kind of building as they go forward here.
Mm-hmm. So this summer, Kyle, I think everybody has talked about this, and I don't think I've heard your opinion on it, so that's why I'm asking. But if the Canadiens do what Kent Hughes says is address their biggest need at forward in their top six, what do you think of the idea of a player like they dealt with yesterday from a team called Anaheim? I'm basically asking you about Trevor Zegras. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to like peter my way into this question. But what do you think the prospect of a player like Zegras in Montreal? Because on paper I think it's a great fit potentially, but does that sort of kind of player change things? Like, is that really going to be the game changer for the rebuild? A player like Zegras or somebody of his caliber? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a good question because they need scoring, right? It's been another year where goals have been hard to come by. I really do wonder, like, I mean, either way, are they a playoff team this year? I'm not sure, but like, if Kirby Dach doesn't get hurt, second game of the season, they don't miss Alex Newhook for such a great chunk of time. I mean, how different are things right now? I would say, like, relatively different, at least to the part where we could be sitting here on trade deadline and say, yeah, you know what, if they keep getting on a bit of a run here, perhaps they can put some pressure on one of the wild card spots. I think those absences were that crucial to begin with, but the lack of scoring is certainly a very real thing here, as you guys both know. So there's you can see a path to if that were to happen hypothetically, that being a good thing for Montreal. But I just think clearly there's a style that Zegras likes to play, and certainly it's rubbed Anaheim Ducks management the wrong way at times, and it's something they're continuing to work on with him. And I just look at the fact that you've got Cole Caulfield here. They're buddies from their time in the U.S. program and World Juniors. So you've got a confidant in your corner on the same team right away. And with Martin St. Louis as head coach, like it seems so far here in Montreal, like regardless of what kind of player you are, how high you were drafted, what your style of play is, there's a way for him to connect with everybody and to be able to get through in his messaging and how he kind of wants the team concept to fit with everybody and how they go about things. And there's no reason to think that he couldn't do the same if a player of Trevor Zegras' ilk was brought into the mix. So, I mean, of course, you need to make that deal first before you can really start talking about how it all worked. But I think of who they have here in place already, it could be an environment where Zegras, along with all the how big a microscope it is here in this market, there could be a path to some success here for the team for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Drew, I got to cut you there for a sec. I got to bounce, guys, but if I can, I'll pop back in a bit later. It was great chatting with you, Kyle. Good seeing you. Deeks,
yes, you too.
Have a good time. Hope you get to break some trades. But that's it for me for now. Take care, guys.
All right. Thanks again, Shaner. Appreciate it, brother. Shaner dropped two trades on us actually during that time. So he did his job, I think. So
Yes. Keep the info flowing today, don't you?
Yeah, that he's definitely on it, that guy. So I'm gonna send sorry, I'm just working on bringing my next guest too, which will be Marc Dumont. Have you had a chance to meet Marc over the years? I don't know if you're familiar with Marc.
I don't know. Have we ever? I don't know if we've ever actually met. Like, I'm familiar with him, of course.
Yeah.
But have I ever actually sat down and chatted with him? I don't think so.
Okay. No, he used to work for the Canadiens, and he doesn't
anymore.
That. He was working with Steve Dangle's network as of most recently, but clearly very still dialed on his Montreal Hockey Now website, I believe it is, and he'll be joining us shortly as well. But didn't hear from Eric, so I'm assuming he's still working on that David Savard trade. I'm not sure. But,
yes. So his day is much busier than mine, I will say. So.
Well, that's why you're so gracious with your time on deadline day here. But I'm just going to work on getting him a quick link here, and then we can carry on. But in the meantime, man. So what's your schedule look like for the rest of the day? You're going to be recapping by the end of this all on Sportsnet. Like, where can we catch you on TV today, or what's going on?
Yeah, we've got, we're on the air for a while here yet. And so we'll continue to kind of do some hits into the show there, depending on how the day unfolds. And then after 3:00, then you're kind of waiting for, certainly here in Montreal, for Kent Hughes to address the media and do his post-trade deadline debrief. And then file what's needed, and then got to get ready for a game here tomorrow. So busy few days here in Montreal, but that's the way we like it. Yeah,
that's right. So you will be in town for the Leafs game, I presume, that on Saturday, or did you just
Correct.
say that? I missed that.
Yep. Yeah.
So Joel Edmondson, you might be interviewing him again on Saturday, like you just
mentioned. Yes, you're right. That's funny, that he's back here, and it's going to be interesting to watch how he all fits into things in Toronto. As Montreal fans know. Like his style is best suited for playoffs.
Yes.
You can see kind of the last. I think they've got 19 games here left. There might not be much that he does within that stretch that Leaf fans are going, oh wow, I'm so glad we have him here. But once the bright lights of the postseason comes on and the ice shrinks, that's where his strengths are really at the forefront. And as we saw during the run a couple of years ago with Montreal, he was a huge part of the four Clydesdales, right, that Luke Richardson dubbed his blue line, and he was one of them.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's going to be a little awkward because they're probably going to boo him, but at the same time, he was a big part of that run. But I don't think he's going to get quite the boos as, say, like a Mark Scheifele or something. You know what I mean? Like from
for sure. Like those boos, like because did he get them when Washington came through here? I can't even think back if he did. But I mean, those are that's like out of respect, right? There's the respectful boos, and then there's like the I hate you boos. But
like the Marchands and the Chara. I don't think anyone got as booed as Zdeno Chara in Montreal, probably.
Right.
So that's pretty fair. So yeah, in terms of it's funny. I actually got I don't know if I mentioned this, but before I saw you in October in Buffalo, I went to go watch the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo and ran into basically the entire front office of the Canadiens, and they were all right there in front of me. They weren't they weren't hiding, you know, they were up on the concourse, kind of in with the fans, and I got to chat with Kent Hughes for like maybe 5-10 minutes, and it was the first time I ever really chatted with like a Canadiens executive. And man, that guy is just like, his approachability, his calm demeanor. I mean, you've dealt with Marc Bergevin several times, interviewed Bergevin several times. You've also interviewed Kent Hughes in the pressers. What do you make of the vibe change from the Bergevin front office to the Kent Hughes front office here?
Yeah, it seems like certainly it's a different one. It's not as tightly wound, I would say, and doesn't seem to be. I shouldn't say there isn't, like it's matter of fact, because I mean I'm not in those boardrooms and those meetings, but there just doesn't seem to be so much on like the secrecy of everything, and we can't let anything get out. I understand there's certain information you have to withhold, but the idea that like like everyone's out to get you kind of thing, and we can't let anything, we can't be transparent about anything. Certainly, I think those days are gone, and I believe like having Chantal Maccabee, who's a longtime journalist with RDS here now, running the PR department, plays a big role in that too. So I think this is still a team that clearly is dealing from a position where they've got a lot of pressure to deal with, even in this kind of rebuild phase. Like there's a lot of money at stake in a market like Montreal, so there's the push to get results sooner rather than later. But with that, I think that's kind of what's been impressive about this regime, is that they haven't been tempted to try to hit the fast forward button through this process. They've kind of stuck to the plan that they set out. Now at a certain point, you've kind of got to say, okay, our plan is here and arrived, and now it's time to win. And as we're seeing, just down the highway in Ottawa, that's easier said than done at times. It doesn't always work that way, even though you think you've drafted right, you've signed all your young pieces to long-term deals, and you think, okay, we've got the group now, and it's time to march towards the playoffs. It can't always be that simple. So that'll be something to watch. But I think in terms of how this regime goes about it, patience is the key here for them. And also just kind of creating an environment and just modernizing things, like different the different departments of the hockey ops that was either ignored or just kind of non-existent for so many years under the Bergevin era. It's brought the oldest franchise in hockey into the 21st century here the last little while, and that's been really encouraging too.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. They've modernized things quite a bit. And I want to bring in our next guest. I just asked you a minute ago if you've ever, had any interactions with Marc. And I think we're going to give him a chance to make that happen, because he's about to join us in a moment here. Marc, can you hear me? I just want to make sure I have him in the green room. But I just want to make sure before I bring him in that he's good. He's checking his phone, maybe getting a David Savard text notification or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'll get Marc, are you good? If you can give me a thumbs up if you're good, and I'll bring you on. All right, so Kyle, let's introduce you personally now to Marc Dumont. Marc, thanks for joining us, man.
How's it going,
Marc,
Drew? Hey, Kyle. Glad to hear you. I was actually just texting Kat Toffoli saying I hope one day you can have a quiet trade deadline.
Yes.
Because he just got moved for that third rounder, but it's just so crazy how Tyler Toffoli is a victim of his own success every single deadline. It's I genuinely feel bad for him, because he just wants a long-term team, but it doesn't seem to be lining up.
Right. What a great pickup for Winnipeg, though, don't you think? Like,
Kyle, aren't you impressed how well Winnipeg has gone? Let's say this summer, few people were saying that Winnipeg was going to be a good team. They ended up being one of the cup contenders. Picking up Monahan early, in my opinion, fantastic deal. And now Toffoli. I'm really impressed with Winnipeg.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. Like, Cheveldayoff has kind of had the history of maybe tiptoeing around some of the bigger moves at deadline, and you kind of fill in some gaps on the exterior, but some real legitimate improvements here at forward.
And you got one of the best goaltenders in the world, right? So you can't go wrong.
It's a great place to start.
I think Habs fans, if you're looking for a team, I know they're gonna have a really hard time with the whole Jake Evans thing, but Winnipeg's gonna be a fun team to cheer for, in my opinion.
I think so. And if they win a cup, we get a conditional third-round pick too, right?
I honestly, I haven't been paying attention to it. Just the mere fact, in my opinion, listen, moving Sean Monahan early, a lot of people thought he didn't get good value, but I'd like to hear what you both think. I think he got fantastic value, considering what the players are going for today. Let's be honest, it looked like it was going to be a seller's market, but it's a buyer's market right now.
For sure. I mean, yeah, did they not get a first-round pick as part of what? So they got one to get him from Calgary and then got another one to flip him. Like, what more do you want? Like, that's and so I live in Ottawa, and so Sens fans were apoplectic about the third and fourth round pick that they got for Tarasenko. But I'm like, first off, like, when did Vladimir Tarasenko become Sergei Fedorov? And the guy had a full no movement clause. Like, he completely dictated his fate there. So,
and he has his family, right? He has family,
exactly.
Just like I have family in Ottawa. He has family in Florida. So, you know, it was funny. I was trying to establish if it's a buyer or seller's market. It's situational. It's case by case. I think we're seeing big fluctuations. We might see some big ramp ups towards 3:00, but honestly, it feels like the teams that are buying are kind of slowly pulling away the assets there, and they're kind of happy with where they are. Might see some panic moves, and that's when David Savard might go. But I think it'll be a quiet one for the Habs by 3 p.m.
That's the indication right now. I mean, that seems to be the consensus, right? I mean, we're all kind of just grasping at straws to see what kind of deal might manifest between now and 3. But the only thing we've seen so far is a minor league transaction with Mishak coming in for Yannick Perreault's son, Jacob Perreault. Is it Jacob? Tell me I got his name right. Okay, thank God. So, but Mark, you actually had some interesting information on him, because all we've heard about Jacob Perreault is his shot, his offense, and there's just no defense. He's a late first rounder from 2020. So if that ends up being the only deal that Kent Hughes makes, where are we at here?
Well, and I think it's been well established. Kyle will know better than I am, but I think it's been well established that Kent Hughes doesn't play games. He sets up his price and he waits for people to come to him. You know, he's a fisherman that knows if he leaves his bait out long enough, he's going to get a bite. So I think that's what we're seeing with Kent Hughes. And for the Canadiens, we're going to be looking at the summer for their big moves, right? That's when the cap space opens up. That's when Carey Price's bonus will no longer be involved, so they can maybe move him to a team that wouldn't want to pay that extra $7 million on July 1st. So really, we're leading towards a busy summer for the Montreal Canadiens. But right now, and obviously they will make their trade at the draft, I guarantee it. Another Kirby Dach, Alex Newhook trade. But it's really moving towards a summer, a busy summer for the Canadiens, because they will have a fair amount of cap space. And as we all know, that's the best asset in the NHL. Well, it's one of the best assets in the NHL.
Yeah, the best asset is having good quality the players, and that's what they're slowly moving towards here. So I'm with you, Mark. Like for Kent Hughes, like there's no pressure for him to go, oh, geez, we better make something happen here before 3:00, because all the guys that potentially would have the most interest for a buyer, they've all got some sort of term attached to them. So they got their rental done early with Sean Monahan and did a good bit of business there. And now you can just kind of let the cards fall and wait to see if there is a motivated panic buyer to go, okay, I need to get somebody here. I need David Savard. I don't know, what do you need? Okay, it's the first round pick. Fine. Then you cross that bridge if you come to it. But for now, this is a team that is in no rush to do anything. And we've seen in the past, like a couple of shrewd moves around the draft and more flexibility opens up in the summer. So the time is then for more major surgery and something a little more eye-popping here out of Montreal.
Yeah, and I think if we're looking at the overall assets, the only thing I would say, Kyle, that I feel like there's a bit of a rush is finally resolving the goalie issue. Now, we've heard it's all sunshine and lollipops in the Canadiens locker room, but I guarantee you all three goalies hate the situation. It's really difficult to get into your groove, to find that rhythm if you don't have your own net. When you're sharing it with three people, it can create some animosity. Now, I will say Jake Allen is probably one of the best teammates you can have in the NHL, right up there with David Savard, which is funny because they're both the guys that might move. Yeah. But I think for the well-being of the team, they really need to solve. I will say that's probably the one gamble that Kent Hughes put down there that might backfire a little bit. But even then, let's be honest, if they move Allen, they're not going to get much. And historically, the goalie market is dead. And even though teams like New Jersey need a goalie and Detroit, I strongly doubt that they're going to want to put out a second-round pick for Jake Allen, for example.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so now, like, I'm curious if 3:00 comes and nothing's happened, then, like, okay, what are you doing for the rest of the year? Because
or next year.
or next year, right? But at least again, you've got the summer to kind of figure that out. But for the final, 20 some games that they have here to close out, are you sticking with the same three and just asking for a little more patience out of those three guys? But you're right. Like I just thought, after that game in Nashville Tuesday night, like some of the comments from Jake Allen there, like it was just a really honest and raw snapshot into what he's been feeling. And as you say, he's been the ultimate consummate teammate in terms of not adding any gasoline on the fire here while the team kind of sorts this all out, and has allowed, Sam Montembeault and Caden Primo to their best opportunity to have good starts when they come up. I just, you can't ask for much more in terms of how he's handled his end of things in a very unlikely and just unfavorable position for all three of them to be in.
Yeah, and we know he's a player's GM, right? So we're for sure he's trying to make something happen. I feel, again, the one criticism I give to Ken Hughes, who I think is navigating this rebuild quite well, not bowing to any kind of pressure, is sometimes maybe falling in love with his own players a little too much. For example, Josh Anderson last year, perhaps David Savard this year. Now, I'm looking at this in terms of value statistically, but that's not the real value in the NHL. These guys have value beyond what I'm looking at with my numbers, right? For example, David Savard's cup ring, veteran. He's the kind of guy that will keep the team together through rough patches. So I'm interested to see how it goes with Savard, but I'd say the one risk is that it turns into another Josh Anderson situation.
Gotcha. That's a good point too.
Fair enough. And we also have a bit of a breaking deal here. Kyle Opozo going from the Buffalo Sabres to the Florida Panthers. Joining former Buffalo Sabres teammate Sam Reinhart, actually. And I think I saw Eric Engels just put out a tweet of a fourth line of Lomberg, Cousins, and Okposo as a fourth line.
The Florida Panthers are going to win the Stanley Cup. I honestly, and I believe this for the whole part of the season, they're the villains that they stole the torch from the Boston Bruins. They're dirty, but they're skilled. They're so fun to watch. They're pure entertainment. They drive everyone crazy. Every single incident this year was between the Florida Panthers and another team. It's going to work quite well in the playoffs. I can't wait to hate root for them. It's like they drive me crazy, but it's pure entertainment. Whereas the West,
can't look away.
Yeah, exactly. The West, you got Dallas, you have Edmonton, you have just Colorado, you have a bevy of teams Edmonton obviously should do good, that'll do well, but I really see Florida now, and I love that they're going for, and Vegas. Sorry, Vegas is a team in the West, but Florida's making moves too, and it's slightly following in the trail of Vegas. Is that they're realizing that there's a bit of a market inefficiency where you can go out there and pick up a guy for like Tyler Toffoli for a third round pick.
Right. Yeah, they were, man, the cockiness that Florida operated with in their run last year,
I love it,
was incredible. And they just ran out of gas in the final. But it's just they picked up right where they left off, dealt with some injuries on their back end early on the year, withstood all of that. And, forget, we've had a short summer, and it was so much taxing on just getting into the playoffs last year in the long run. They haven't looked at all fatigued by any of that here this year. They've just gotten stronger as the season's gone on.
Yeah, and they're making a run for it, right? So I'm glad to see this now. Our teams are finally realizing, well, maybe it's not realizing, but their risk assessment, you have to also weigh the risk of not making a move, right? And I think in Canada particularly, we tend to give a lot of credit for teams for keeping all their assets, not moving any of their prospects, but there's no reward for that at the end of the day, right? You want to win that Stanley Cup. So I feel like the NHL is getting a lot more entertaining in terms of player movement lately, and all credit to Vegas. All credit goes to Vegas for that one.
That's right.
I'm still trying to figure out how they're doing it, but what's
Vegas?
Yeah.
Hey, they're following the rules. That's the thing. If your
they
GM isn't doing this, then they're not exploiting anything. It's not a loop. I called it a loophole earlier. It's not. So they're really just exploiting a market inefficiency is the way I would look at it. Everybody's conservative. If you become the risky one, the gains can be really high. Obviously, there's a risk of failure. But again, no one gets a reward because their third round pick ended up playing 200 games in the NHL. You know what I mean? So, if you want to ride on the riverboat, you got to go down to the river.
That's I like
Well
the
said.
analogy, Mark. And Mark has got some wicked puns on his Twitter, man. If you haven't followed Marc Dumont on Twitter already, what are you doing? I mean, he'll shake his head, but he knows. You got some good tweets, man.
I wouldn't. I have to follow me. You don't. Okay, so that's I'm putting that out there. It's yeah, absolutely. I'll say this. I recently put a filter up on Twitter, and it improved everything. It really, and I hate it because I love interacting with fans. That's what my favorite thing is. But
Right.
unfortunately, recently I had to put a quality filter up, and it's done great things. So I recommend it for everyone.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Your own mental space is most important. That's awesome.
That exactly.
There you go.
I want to ask you guys about this real quick, and Kyle, let me know if you have to jump out at any moment. But is there a bit of buyer's remorse in Vancouver with Lindholm here? Because there was talk about the Gensel, possible acquisition to Vancouver at one point, which we know he went to Carolina. But what do you guys make of the Lindholm deal at this point? Is it just too early to say still? Like, are we until we get to the playoffs, do we really know? What Vancouver has?
I guess. I mean, yeah, it's. I guess if it was the opportunity to get Jake Gensel, I mean that's a different. You're just looking at the opportunity to get an incredibly talented winger there that can bolster your scoring, and you need to give up somebody from that roster to kind of make it all work for Vancouver. But it hasn't quite popped. I think the degree they were hoped, which is a little bit surprising, only because. I mean, I had heard that there was just the whole uncertainty of, what his next contract was going to look like, where he was going to end up was weighing on him in Calgary. And you thought, okay, get the trade done. You're going to be with Vancouver the rest of the year, and you figure out your future after that year. And maybe there was just kind of a bit of a putting his mind at ease and the chance to just go play at that point. And maybe it has, and it just hasn't quite clicked with the team yet. So in that sense, I am surprised, but I still like a lot about what they do. I'm curious. They're the one team where they haven't been really around the playoffs other than kind of the bubble run there in 2020 for quite some time. So once that gets rolling, like how are they going to adjust to it all for players that don't have a ton of experience in the postseason, just in terms of that core. But I don't think for me I think there's still a chance to have a player there that can really help you. It's just taken a little bit longer than I'm sure many anticipated.
I do love the fact that Vancouver, again, and I deal with, I'm in with the nerds and I know all about the numbers. And as soon as they start making moves, all my fellow nerds are saying, "Oh, that's a bad move. Don't do that. Don't do that." But here's the thing: they were first place in the NHL when they started making these moves. Again, it comes down to really seizing that chance. So I like that Vancouver is making moves, being aggressive. They might be trying to catch lightning in a bottle, but once in a while that does happen, right? So they have one of the best goaltending pairings in the NHL, which is interesting because it's not necessarily the guys you'd expect there with Demko and the former Habs goaltender there. Casey DeSmith. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But some fun elements, and you know what? They're the type of team that you enjoy cheering for in the playoffs. So maybe they're not the most star-studded team, but they're going for it, and that's what sports are all about. I really do like the turnaround. And again, it wasn't looking very good for Vancouver this summer. If we were going to name two teams that might be in trouble, Vancouver and the Jets were probably among them, and Calgary. But so it's been a really nice reversal of fortunes, and I really, really wish deep down inside that a Canadian team will win a cup for two reasons. Mm-hmm. That way the Canadians can stop hanging their hat on it, because it's starting to become a pretty sad fact when you say, 4 and then 40 years ago, but also just to kind of get that pride back in showing that Canada can win a cup. I believe just in general, it's a little disappointing or almost embarrassing. Again, I understand taxes. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but it would be really nice to see a Canadian team finally win the cup. And it doesn't have to be Montreal. I'd love it to be any team, even the team playing in the Big Smoke right now would be fine with me.
It's wow, that is.
Did you say Toronto? Were you referring to
Toronto? That
Toronto?
tells you how long the droug's been.
Right? Well, hey, man, but when Toronto's good, it's good for the NHL, and it's good for every other team. That's the way I look at it. But, and I know I can confidently say that with very little odds of it happening, so.
Well,
I was just think, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say, like, I can't remember a time where, again, I do not like doing the whole predictions and, well, who do you think is going to win the Stanley Cup? Because it's like, geez, how can you give a reasonable answer there? You just don't know. there's so much that goes into it all. But I can't remember a time where you've got, I mean, likely 4 Canadian teams in here in the playoffs. Maybe if Calgary pulls off some type of Houdini here, they slide in and make it 5. But at least of the 4 that are in right now, you can make a case. Vancouver, maybe the odds are a little bit longer, but you can kind of make a case for all 4 of them that go, if the breaks go the right way, if their players deliver to kind of play at the best of their abilities, that they could be, serious threats to go on a long run. And I just can't remember a time, certainly over this last stretch of years, where you've got that many Canadian teams that you can legitimately kind of make a case for. So that's really, I think, encouraging for Canadian hockey fans.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, it's fun to poke fun at the Leafs, but it's really, really difficult to win a Stanley Cup, even if you have the best team in the NHL. When you look at the 3 best teams have the most wins in NHL history, none of them even, I think one got to the conference final, so they all got eliminated. Right. After that, there's a bunch of Habs teams that won, but in the modern NHL, being the best team in the league during the regular season is not a guarantee to win a Stanley Cup. So as much as it's fun to make fun of the Leafs, and we'll do it once and then we'll do it for the second round as well, it's very difficult to win a Stanley Cup. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Have the Leafs done enough to address their needs? It's still not quite 3:00 yet, but I mean, Joel Edmondson, knowing we know what we know about Joel Edmondson, we talked about him earlier on in the show, but you can't not like that move if you're a Toronto fan, just knowing what he did to them 3 years ago. So, I mean, is him and, was it not Liljegren? Who did they just bring back? Lyubushkin. Thank you. That was pretty close. Their names are way too close together. Yeah. But I'm just curious. It's always been defense and goaltending has been the issue for Toronto. It's never a lack of scoring. So have they addressed that enough? Is Samsonov, there's just those questions that are just going to continue to linger again into their 7th or 8th year going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, I feel like somewhere to kind of help at forward would be ideal, I think, for them. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say, but I just look at the way they're running right now. Max Domi is their second line center. You've got Tavares playing a little bit lower. Are you comfortable going into a playoff series with that? And do you see yourself putting Tavares back up in that 2 spot? And then are you okay with that? Because we saw as the playoffs went on last year and they got in the second round against Florida, he struggled a bit at times there. And they were kind of had to be flexible with where they used him over the course of the 2 playoff series last year. So trying to find some help there, and where do you go to get it? That's beyond me. But I don't mind the additions they made to their blue line, and I agree with Treliving's line about you can never have too many defensemen come playoff time. And those are not they're not just guys. I think they can help in the way that they play. And so trying to shore up a bit of depth lower in their forward lineup to just give Sheldon Keefe a little bit more flexibility when it comes to matchups when you get into potentially a 7-game series. That could be one where you've seen it in the past where one of their lines gets picked apart over the course of 7 games and it ends up being it can help cost you. So that's where I'm kind of looking for them.
Yeah, I just want to see how they react to pressure to a certain extent. And I don't think I'm qualified to talk about this, but I will anyhow, because it's the internet. I feel like there's a bit of a mental block with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we saw it after they lost to the Canadiens, right? That stuck with them for a very long time. I know they're still thinking about that. They're still thinking about other losses to the Bruins. So to take that next step, I'm not sure how they can do it, but they really do need to refocus and kind of, it's such a cliche, but game by game, forget about losing all those other series. Forget about how many points you got in the regular season. They're a good team if they can focus and if they get that killer instinct, which isn't always present, So I really love the roster makeup in Toronto. I think every team in the NHL would love to have that type of firepower up front, but there really does need to be a mental reset, I believe, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and just say hey guys, the past failures will not impact our future success.
Yeah, and I will say, I think finally winning a round last year, Mark, I thought that did do wonders because it was year after year. It's been since 2004. That's gone now. That won't be talked about once the playoffs get going. But to your point, in the first round, in all likelihood, you're either playing the Bruins team that knocked you out in 18 or 19, or you're playing the Panthers, the team that knocked you out a year ago. So one way or another, you've got to find a way to get through that. And there's no way of knowing how you do it until you just do it, right? So that's regardless of who they end up facing. If it's all likelihood one of those two teams, it'll be fascinating to watch how they go about it, and what makes that time of year so great for us as viewers to take it all in.
Yeah, but they lost 4-1 to Boston. I don't know which team I'd like to face more. I think it's Boston. I think I'd like to. I would avoid Florida like the plague in the playoffs if I could. Honestly, that's they're gonna add injury to insult. Let's put it that way. That's what the Florida Panthers are gonna do. So yeah, I usually don't like picking teams either, Kyle, but I just don't see a team that can be better than Florida this year. But like as the comments are saying, it's anyone's playoffs every single year. Last year, they set a record, Boston, and boom, eliminated by the Maple Leafs. So it's it should be a very, very interesting playoffs, but I really just don't see how a team can overcome right now what Florida's doing in the East. I will put a nickel down that they're going to get to the conference or to the Stanley Cup final this year.
Yes, very, very bold. But and that's the thing, right? Like it's so odds are if you get Boston in the first round, and if you're able to get through them, then you probably got Florida waiting for you in round 2, just because that's the division they're in. So one way or another, you probably have to get through both if you're Toronto. So yeah, flip a coin in terms of which one you'd rather see first, because you're probably going to see the other one on the other side if you're able to get through. But anyway, I got to get going here, Drew. So.
Yeah, man.
It's been great to be on with both of you.
No, pleasure as always, man. This is the 3rd year in a row, so thank you for doing this as always, man. Kyle Bukauskas, ladies and gentlemen, my friend, my mentor, Mr. GQ himself, joining us, and we'll see you Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, rinkside for the Leafs and Canadiens, my friend.
We'll do. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and thanks to all the viewers for playing along here. So take care, everyone.
Cheers, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, Mark, you and I, first time we get to interact sort of one-on-one, but you jumped right in. You're a natural. You're not new to this whole thing. So it's good to have you jump on for the first time and actually get to chat together. So
thank you. Yeah, I unfortunately I had to find my camera, so the viewers will have to see my face, but we all have to deal with adversity in life. We all have to deal with adversity.
Nobody's an exception, man. Nobody's exactly. An exception. But no, it's awesome to have you on, and honestly the viewership's outstanding. Thank you for retweeting. I did see you do that, retweeting, and honestly I rarely ever do live streams on Twitter anymore. We didn't see it as effective at one point, but now I mean more brands seem to be doing it, so I threw it out there, and you did that. So thank you for bringing in your audience too.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, real quick, Drew, is that was something that I started doing when I worked with the Habs, and something that I wanted to hey, let's just go live every time something happens, and we never got better numbers than just going live. It's an instant content absorption market now. So yes, this is and it's funny because a lot of people ask, hey, how do you get into the industry? How do I prepare? It's really difficult right now for everyone that's trying to get into this industry, because the jobs that they're going to be working in 10 years don't exist right now. Just like the job that you're doing or I'm doing didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. So you have to be able to adapt, and obviously instant reactions is the way to go.
It is. It's the instant gratification world, and everybody soaks it all up, especially trades. And then you got like a whole day of them. So to go live is great. And it certainly seems to be the market, and everybody's now just coming to YouTube slowly. It just seems to, it's easy to get monetized. It's easy to make a couple of bucks a month on YouTube as a starter, and then you kind of go from there. But yeah, I want to talk to you about that a little bit just while I have you, because I know, it was a tough departure from the Canadiens. You got to work with the Canadiens. But can you just talk about, how long were you with them all together, and just talk about your experience and the, what it must have been like to work for the franchise?
It was about, I came in right after, so the Athletic had their mass layoffs, right? As soon as, it was inevitable. So they cut about like a third of their workforce. So that was a little odd, because it was you're in a pandemic, then you suddenly lose your job with no fault of your own. But the Canadiens, actually, it was the president of marketing, which no one knows about. I don't need to tell you his name, but he's the one that came in and said, hey, come join us. So for about 2 years, I worked on contract with them. And then finally, I convinced them to give me like an actual job, because I like doing it and it was really fun, but eventually you kind of have to, plan for the future. But listen, there was the way they ended it. incredibly unprofessional, but I will say this is that it was one of the most fun experiences of my life. I got to interact with legends. I got to do so many things that were just fun. The Stanley Cup run was one of the most fun times I've had, full stop. Not just like at work, full stop. So I was lucky that I got to have fun there. And it was a privilege to do it. I just honestly wish that it would have been, there would have been closure there. But, it's always weird to get a raise 1 week and get a performance review at 100%, and then 4 days later, get told, we're going in a different direction. So that was confusing. But honestly, I do appreciate I got to speak to legends, I got to interact with fans too. That was the biggest thing for me. Just interacting with the fans. There's one thing that sports teams don't necessarily do well enough is really they'll speak to the fans, but they won't interact with the fans, right? So that was great as well. But it was a very, very fun experience. I know that I've spoken about just the end, but overall, 98% of it was good.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, was your role mostly? It looked like all the content you were putting on the Canadiens YouTube channel was mostly what you were doing. Was that the main sort of thrust of what you were doing? Was the content video wise, or was
well, I got brought in to be a writer
first, because I know that's what your main thrust is, but
exactly.
Hence the website, by the way, Montreal Hockey Now, if you can't tell.
Yeah. So, and then it quickly changed to start doing videos, and then the videos started becoming t-shirt sales. Like, that's all it was. I ended up selling t-shirts at the end, and that's kind of where things started to go wrong. It was like, hey, I got brought on to write. You told me you need more writers. You said you don't have any good writers. And then, obviously things kind of got skewed down the road, but really it was more about bringing the vibe to the fans. They're not the vibe, that's a terrible term, but just kind of connecting with the fans a little bit. And that's really what I did best. My favorite thing was, for example, when Guy Lafleur passed away. That wasn't my favorite thing, but it was speaking to every single person there. Just everyone has a story about Guy Lafleur. And then you speak to this other guy who has a story about Maurice Richard, whose statue is there. So just being able to kind of hear those amazing stories and why people fell in love with the Montreal Canadiens, that was just really, really cool. And I'll never forget that. That's just, every single person has that story, that link with the Montreal Canadiens, and that's what makes it a special franchise. So I was really lucky to have heard a lot of those fantastic stories.
Well, I imagine this as hard as you got something breaking over there.
Are you serious? No, someone's put something in the chat, but it sounds wrong.
I see some stuff coming up. I've been ignoring.
Yeah, for Brent Clark. No way. I'm not even going to look that up. That's not true. But hold on. Harris and Pearson, 50% retain heading to LA for Brent Clark. No way. 0% chance that's happening. I mean, great if it does.
He's been dropping a few.
Okay.
Dropping a few, and we've just been scrolling. So
okay, well, no, but hey, that would be absolutely fantastic. But no, not gonna happen. I'll say this: don't trade Jordan Harris. Like, everyone wants to get rid of him, man. Arbor Jack
eventually, but not.
Well, no, why? Okay, everyone says eventually you have to make room, but if he's the one that's playing well right now, and he's the one that played the best last year. There's room for a good player. I will say this, and I'm not trying to insult Caden Gooley, but we need to readjust where we see players. Everyone has Caden Gooley up here and Jordan Harris and Arbor Jack down here. It's closer to 45-55 rather than 70-30. So I would just readjust how much you value a guy like Jordan Harris and Arbor Jack. It's a lot higher than most assume their impact on the ice.
Yeah, you know what? Like, Caden Gooley, I haven't been quite as impressed this season. I think it's been a bit of a step back for him. Maybe
it's a tough role. He's playing one of the toughest assignments in the NHL, right? Yeah,
that's where you have to look at it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's still a kid, and he's still 22. Like, is Caden Gooley even 22 yet? So, give or take,
should be. Caden Gooley.
I should.
It's funny. Once I was doing an interview in this exact room with Gooley, and someone tried to break into that window while I was doing an interview with him.
No.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Hey, we finished the interview, and then I was like, Caden, one moment, and then you heard French swearing as I ran after him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 22. He's 22 now. Listen, last year was his rookie year, and he got thrown to the wolves in a baptism by fire, let's put it that way. So I would like to see Caden Gooley with a strong partner, not on his offside. That's another huge issue right now, is he's playing on his offside, and that's so difficult, especially for quick puck retrievals and zone exits, right? So I'd like to see Gooley on his good side with a good defensive partner. I think that he has the potential to be part of a top pairing, but I don't necessarily think he'll be that number one guy with a bullet, if you know what I mean. Like, I think he'll be half of a good pairing, not necessarily just a number one wherever he goes. That's what I'm looking for Kaiden Guhle.
So we're getting closer and closer to the end of the NCAA season and what have you. So people are pretty excited about Lane Hutson getting signed.
Luke Tuck. Oh, you mean okay? Yeah.
Luke Tuck. Yeah, I like how you got that in perfectly. See, our Wi-Fi is great. Actually, we were struggling with Kyle's Wi-Fi at the.
Because mine's usually really bad. I got that NDG internet, and it's usually really bad. But hey, if it's working, it's working.
No, it's great. Your audio is great. It's like you've done this before. So, but what do you make once Lane Hutson does come to town? What have you? And what do you think your impressions are of him? Is he really going to be, some rendition of Adam Fox, Quinn Hughes? Dare I even say Cale Makar? That's just a very high bar to set. But what do you think he's going to be the next power play quarterback that we've seen since Andrei Markov? That's kind of what I'm getting at. Too early to say.
No, okay. Here's the thing with Lane Hutson.
Is the hype too high?
a lot of what he does is stuff that will only fly in the NCAA. Now, before anyone gets angry at me, I've watched him. Probably one of the people who've watched him the most. I've caught almost every one of his games in the NCAA, and the walking the line and the finding open passing lanes, the way he creates time and space won't necessarily fly in the NHL. The reason being, obviously, it's a lot tighter game, it's a lot tighter checking, it's a lot higher speed. That being said, he's such a smart player that he's playing within the confines or within the settings that are in the NCAA. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the exact way he'll play in the NHL, right? When I spoke to Adam Nicholas just right after the draft, we actually had like a caveman conversation. I was coming back and I was like, Lane Hutson. He's, and then I responded with 3 more grunts. It was, But basically, once we finally got to our verbal, he was saying this guy absorbs information so quickly. And his ability, Lane Hutson's ability to absorb information, put into practice, is what's going to help him in the NHL. Now, that being said, again, I see him as maybe someone that will need a really strong partner. And that's not an insult. That's kind of how the NHL works nowadays. You got to find that chemistry. On the power play, he's obviously very, very good. We won't necessarily see him score on so many wrist shots. A lot of his goals that are going in, let's be honest, NHL goalies will probably stop them. But again, he'll adapt. And I really think that in terms of just calming the play down, Mike Matheson, despite all the criticism, has done a much better job than most people would assume. But Lane Hutson always has 4 or 5 different options working, whereas most guys will have A or B, whereas Lane Hutson has C, D, E. And I think that's what will really give him the advantage in the NHL. He has fantastic anticipation. He is much better defensively than people assume. But he's not going to come in and dominate right away. Let's make that clear. Like, he's going to need time to adjust, to adapt to the rigors of a full NHL season, to the lack of time and space, because that's what he's exploiting in the NCAA right now.
So what do you think of like something like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of future pairings here. Mind you, some people suggest that David Reinbacher could be a good pairing for him. So you figure something along the lines.
I like that, yeah.
So Hutson, Reinbacher, Mayu, Jack Eye, and then who's with Kaiden Guhle? You know what I mean? Like who's going to be his guy? Like I'm trying to think. We don't even know if these guys are all still going to be here. We still got Jaden Struble. We still got Jordan Harris. We've got a lot of options here, Mark. So, I mean, how do you see it?
Adam Engstrom might be signing a contract in the next few days as well. Keep an eye out for that. It's the best problem in the world to have. It's the best problem. And I know everyone's like, we got to make space. You don't make space until you need it. Like this idea of people are saying you trade Mike Matheson because guys are coming. I understand the logic behind that, but the guys aren't here yet.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's not the worst thing in the world to have, like, for example, this year, Brant Clark in the AHL was just dominant. You could have said, he could be on an AHL roster, and he is now, but, or unless they sent him back, either way, that was valuable experience for him. So having a strong AHL team loaded up with good defensemen is a good thing too. I am in no rush if I'm Ken Hughes to move any of these defensemen at all whatsoever. However, I would probably listen in on David Savard. If I'm being perfectly, all emotions aside, you have an opportunity to move a guy who, statistically speaking, is a drag on numbers. He's 33 years old. He's not going to get better. And you can replace him internally on the ice. So that's emotions aside. We're not talking about locker room or how fun he is. So I would pounce on that. If I'm Kent Hughes right now, I would pounce on that. But I also would like to suggest that Hughes has done this before with Anderson, where he says, there's interest, and it might be a tactic to kind of build up interest. You know, oh yeah, there's lots of guys coming at my door, you know, trying knocking and asking about Savard or Matheson. Part of that is a sales pitch, so we do have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, you have to wonder. I think Josh's value probably was higher coming out of that 2021 playoff run when Kent Hughes just came in. So I kind of believe that. I had Nick Kiprios on our Habs Tonight show we had going, and he said that there was a lot of calls on Anderson from what he heard.
Yep.
So I could see that at that time. That was 2 years ago, believe it or not. So
even last year there were some, but it wasn't the offers weren't just a straight first and second for Josh Anderson, and there was some logic to what Ken Hughes was saying. I like this guy. We do need good players, but unfortunate reality now is that by 33, most players are kind of at the tail end of their career, right? So you have to strike while the iron's hot, and taking emotion out of the equation oftentimes is the right decision. But there's a reason why Ken Hughes is also liked so much by the players, is that he doesn't mess around. There's no BS, right? So there's also value in honoring your players. It's not just necessarily you always have to maximize the asset value. The other part here is that Nick Suzuki's sick of losing. Cole Caulfield's sick of losing. Martin St. Louis is sick of losing. I know people on Twitter say, oh, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It absolutely does. Having your star players not see the light at the end of the tunnel is a big issue. So there is still some pressure there to improve things without necessarily, ruining all your assets and selling everything off. So I would say right now, Ken Hughes is navigating this well, but my worry for him is just don't fall in love with your players too much, right?
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that's why he hasn't been afraid to let go of, I mean, like certain players like weren't his, necessarily, like say Romanov or something, but that ended up Kirby Dach. So I don't think anyone's complaining about that. And
Thomas Fleischmann ended up being Kirby Dach essentially. If we go back to it there,
Yeah, I told Dale, I told Weiser.
Yeah, and your former co-host there, yeah.
Yeah, Dale I thanked him. The last time I had him on the channel here. I had him maybe a few months ago, and I was like, I hope you know that you actually, your trade tree is now helping you brought us Kirby Dach, so thank you, as I said.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna see another one of those. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if we're not getting any kind of movement. Honestly, it's not going to be a busy deadline for the Habs, but really look to the build up for the draft. That's when Ken Hughes will be busy, and I really doubt that he'll make a pick at the end of the first round. He's going to keep his first, but he's going to be moving the other. Like, he has a lot of asset, a lot of draft capital right now to work with, and that's where Ken Hughes is at his best.
So what do you think about their first round pick? I mean, ideally it's going to be in the top 10. And
it's almost guaranteed to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
And you know what? It might even be top 5, actually. They're right now, if you look at the strength of strength of schedule right now, the Habs have the hardest in the NHL. All the other teams are chasing are bottom 16 in terms they have, some of the easiest schedules in the NHL. So the issue is that the Habs have been playing so well lately. Like, really, not last night, but since the new year, the Habs have put together the best stretch of hockey since Martin St. Louis took over. They're losing because Montembeault and Allen stopped stealing, wins and stopped saving their bacon. But the Habs are actually playing better now, in my opinion. Again, not yesterday, but better now in the last 2 months than they have since St. Louis took over as coach of the team.
Well, that's a good perspective, because I don't know if everyone really knows that if you really look at it, but you have your numbers there, and that's
just not even it's a chasmic difference between how they were playing and they were doing this against some of the top teams, against the Floridas of the world. So I know people hate it. They say, "Oh, pick up loser points in the standings," and yes, the Habs have been power play or overtime merchants this year, but there seems to be something really interesting brewing right now with the core players, and there's a silver lining amid this frustrating. Down the stretch, there's rarely fun things to look at, but I will say this, that is a really interesting storyline, because I'll be honest, Andrew, I was starting to think, hey man, I love Martin St. Louis, good motivator, but show me improvements. He's been here for 2.5 years. Show me like a modicum of improvements. And there hadn't been, really, statistically speaking, until about 2 months ago. I know everyone will say Cole Caulfield got better, Suzuki got better. We shouldn't take credit away from those high-end athletes. Martin St. Louis' job is the system, and I do believe recently there's just it's not even a slight improvement. It's been by leaps and bounds. They went from one of the worst teams for controlling the shots, the high danger scoring chances, expected goals, to one of the best. Like, it's a complete reversal of fortune. So very encouraging for the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, I think so. And you put out a tweet the other day that, because people are just upset every time they get a point in the stand, like you said, right? So, and I agreed with your tweet. I was kind of just saying, like, there will be a lot more losses than wins, guys. So we're still going to end up with a top 10 pick or potentially a top 5 pick. But you have to have some silver lining in there. These guys are already, I think their heads are already in next season at this point. They're already thinking ahead, right? Like they're already looking forward to what Kent's going to do to improve this roster. By the way, we'll get Kirby Dach back for free. But in addition to that, do you think this, because I did put out a video the other day and I kind of wonder if maybe I regret saying it, but is this first top 5 or 10 draft pick, is this going to be a very key piece, part of the rebuild? Is there any potential it could get traded? Are they definitely taking a player? What if it's a defenseman? A lot of questions still with that pick. Is it really going to make or break the progress of the rebuild here?
First of all, if Zane Parekh is available at 7 or 8, you take him. You take him. I've been one of the people that are ringing the bell saying, hey, you need more offensive talent there. He is an offensive defenseman, but you take him. You pick the best player available. It's as simple as that. It almost never backfires. But it wouldn't surprise me if they move that top 10 pick either. He's well aware of the age group, and I think he's maintained that when, it's essentially between, let's say, Alex Newhook and Sofkovsky. That's the, from 19 to 24 is kind of the range of the age that he wants his players to be. Mm-hmm. And even if you pick a guy top 5, let's say it's anyone other than Demidov or Celebrini or Lindstrom, they're going to take a few years to get here, right? So by the time they're ready to go, maybe the Habs will be in the playoffs and it's a nice little bonus, but it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of accelerates it a little bit, because Ken Hughes has made it clear he's not here to rebuild for 10 years. He thinks, and he absolutely can. This idea that you have to be like Buffalo and be in an eternal pit of sadness for 25 years before being good, we have to remove ourselves from that, right? There are as many examples of slow rebuilds that failed as people trying to, retool on the fly. So I think that if the opportunity comes up, yes, he will move that top 10 pick without hesitation. If it's a player you can put immediately in the lineup, control the money too, because notice that Dach and Newhook, it was about money. They controlled it and they negotiated it down. Then yes, he'll make that trade. Absolutely. It'll have an impact either way, but wouldn't surprise me if the Habs don't even pick in the first round.
That's what I mean. Like I just think that it maybe depends on who's available. It depends on who's available via trade though. Like that's where it depends on if they're going to get the guy that they want. Who do you think that could be, Mark? If they are gonna trade that pick, who do you think it could be?
Again, I'm looking at a guy like Caden Lindstrom, thinking that's who you want. Oh, you mean in terms of who they go get the player?
Yeah, like if they say they can't.
No idea. I'm so bad at these. No effing clue. Big. I'll tell you what it will look for. It'll be a big boy. Over 6 foot, someone with a large frame, someone that has untapped potential, someone that is not at his highest value, arguably at his lowest value. He's often looked into guys that are injured, for example, Dach. There's a risk involved there, though, as we saw. I'm not saying that Dach got injured this year because of what happened in Chicago, but he's missed more than half his games in his career, right? Like he's going to end at this season and having played about 30% of his games in Montreal. So there's a risk involved, but it'll be a young guy with good size, untapped talent that his market value has done this lately, so he's kind of going to try to capitalize when the cost is at its lowest. I don't know who the heck it could be. Honestly, I'm bad when it comes to trying to figure it out, but it'll fit in the exact same parameters as Dach and Newhook. Young, cheap, talented potential, but a risk, a slight risk that, he won't be able to restart it, because we have to be honest here, man. Those reclamation projects like Dach and Newhook rarely work out. In Montreal, they've worked out, but more often than not, they fail. So he does have to be careful moving forward with more reclamation projects.
Yeah, I think he is doing his due diligence for sure when it comes to that, and that's what it's shown so far. Because so far, 2 out of 2, I would think, for the most part. Other than we talked about Lane Hutson, and I'm going to get your thoughts on a couple of Habs prospects before we end here. I have to get going myself. I actually have a couple of things to do before I head into work myself later. But what about guys like Philip Mechar and Owen Beck and some other Canadiens prospects that were curious, how they're going to implement their way into the Canadiens eventually? Because I don't think that it's necessarily pressing that they get into the Canadiens lineup. They're probably going to start in Laval next year, specifically Mechar, Owen Beck. and I'm trying to think of others off the top of my head, but I'm failing right now. So maybe I'll ask about those guys particularly. What other forward prospects, namely those guys, would you say have the maybe potentially highest ceiling for the future for the Canadiens?
It's funny, if you're mentioning ceiling, then Meshal has to be involved, right?
Yeah.
Now, I
really like him, but
I also think it's a boom or bust situation with Philippe Meshal. And it's not that I'm trying to be harsh, but I actually went out there, and as soon as they sent him to the Rangers, to Kitchener, I wrote a tweet. I'll have to go find it and make fun of myself, but I was like, well, Philippe Meshal is way too good for the CHL. He's been playing pro hockey in Slovakia, like blah, blah, blah. I'm so smart. I'm obviously not that smart. The one thing I really wanted to see this year was him taking a big step forward. Right now he's 19. He's no longer that 18-year-old. Now he's been in Canada for a little while. He's had a time to adjust. I wanted to see him a little more engaged, go to those dirty areas, really get as many shots per game as possible. And I haven't lost hope in Philippe Meshal, but he's more of I'm looking at it like 2, 3, 4 years before I'd expect him to make the NHL roster. Maybe longer, and I'm talking about like gaining an actual long-term role with the team. Okay. It's just, we haven't seen him take that next step. Now, next year he's gonna be playing in Laval. There's gonna be less time and space. He's gonna be playing on the third or fourth line with less ice time. Maybe he should be on the power play, but again, he's gonna have to earn it. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts. It's not his professional hockey debut. Don't forget, he played as a 16 and 17-year-old professional hockey, but it's his professional hockey debut in Canada. And again, just like other guys, the issue is the lack of time and space right now. And the Rangers are very, very good this year, so that's had a huge impact on his numbers. But I want to see more from him. And let's forget that he's a first-round pick. Just in terms of how much talent he has, I think you want to see a little bit more from Philippe Meshal. Whereas Owen Beck, I see him as the only guy that has a legitimate chance to make the lineup next year. With all due respect to Jake Evans, you can upgrade that fourth line center position. You know what I mean? And with someone maybe a little more offensive talent, Owen Beck, probably the best face-off taker outside the NHL right now. He's got that defensive acumen, which Martin Saint-Louis is going to love. He's got more offensive flair. So wouldn't be surprised if Owen Beck comes knocking at the door at training camp, because there's not much other competition. You're looking at down centers. You have Riley Kidney, Philippe Maillet, if he resigns, Gignac, Mitchell Stevens. There's really not a ton of Colin White. So if they move Christian Dvorak, there might be a little opening there for Owen Beck. But other than that, as much as Logan Mailloux has taken huge steps this year, still, if you watch him play defensively, it's an issue. His offense is, his shot production is fantastic, and he's one of the guys who has a great selection of shots. He gets his shot through almost all the time, and that's big. That's very important. And if there's no shot, he's going to bounce it off the board so it comes back to his player. He's really, really smart in the offensive zone, but to play for a team coached by Martin Saint-Louis, you have to take care of your own zone, right? So it's going to take a little while for him. And other than that, I can't really see anyone else that would necessarily jump in. And Reinbacher, again, I believe he'll need time. EHC Cloten's a mess. It hasn't been a complete waste of a development year, but it's been difficult for David Reinbacher. So we're going to have to, again, readjust and let him acclimatize to playing North American hockey. But right now, Beck, and that's about it. I don't know if am I missing anyone else? Like maybe Heineman, Sean Farrell. But they all need a little more seasoning in the AHL. So, and that's fine. That's fine. You want those guys to come in and make an impact when they're ready. So it's fine to go in the AHL.
Right. And I think that
Engstrom. Yes, Holy Canadiens mentions Adam Engstrom. Oh, God, yeah. He's one of my favorites. But again, Laval for a little bit. Stephanius is saying Florian Xhekaj, hey, I love how he's scoring. I don't care if he's scoring 20% of his shots. He's doing really well for the Hamilton Bulldogs. Really, really well for the Hamilton Bulldogs. Scoring end-to-end goals. And I see him in the lineup before a guy like Tuck in terms of his overall skill set. But Tuck will get his contract and he'll be in Laval as well. And then Rhett Pitlick, again, a little bit like Michel, I'd like to see a little bit more from him. But when it comes to it, we'll have a very similar lineup, I believe, next year to what you're seeing now.
Yeah, I do like Florian Xhekaj in terms of he's already got some size to him too. He's a Xhekaj, so surprise. But I do think that you see a guy like Michael Pezzetta, who's been held out of the lineup for 8 straight games, what have you, with the Canadiens. I see Owen Beck possibly, or I think a lot of us have seen Owen Beck potentially being the long-term replacement for Jake Evans.
We'll see.
And then maybe potentially having a guy like a Florian Xhekaj be like a more versatile, more involved, more talented, skilled version of Michael Pezzetta, like a guy who can really grind in the fourth line and produce. Like, is that something?
There's value there. There's value there.
There does seem to be value for Florian.
And what's funny is that everyone keeps saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Fourth line doesn't matter. You can get them anywhere." No, man, you need a good fourth line in the NHL, and you have a guy that's making league minimum, that's making a positive impact. That's very good. But we have to really temper our expectations. I know everything's exciting about the Habs right now, but I feel like we have to temper our expectations in terms of impact players. If I looked at the entire prospect pool, in my opinion, there's one person with elite potential, and that's it. There's a couple with star potential. And, after that, there's a lot of good, but not a lot of very good. So, it'll be a couple of years before these guys are really making a positive impact in the NHL.
And I think that's pretty fair.
If they make a positive impact.
If they will, yes, of course.
But it's fun to talk about in the meantime, right? Because there's a bunch of other guys. You're looking at Kapanen Rohrer is playing really well in the National League right now. It's fun. And Habs fans are allowed to dream, but go back 10 years and look at the guys you thought were going to make it and see where they ended up going. There's always a lot fewer that end up making the NHL than we assume.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is we draft high for a few years and we figure, okay, well, that means that they're all going to be good players and they're all going to be impact players, but not necessarily the case. So hopefully things are different this time around with this new front office and the new hockey ops department and everybody kind of having, maybe more cooks in the kitchen is a good thing for the Canadiens in this instance. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's cooks that have a different background that aren't afraid to say no is good for the Montreal Canadiens, because under Marc Bergevin was a bunch of sycophants, right? Like it's let's be honest. But one thing I do worry about a little bit was when Jeff Gordon came on and said, like, are we sure here? He was essentially, the Habs put out that video, but they edit it. He was saying, like, guys, there's one of the most talented forwards available and we need forwards. Like, are you guys sure about this? So I do love that he pushed back a little bit. And I think that Gordon, from what I've heard, doesn't agree, they rarely agree with each other with Hughes and Gordon, and that's a very good thing. Having two people up there instead of Bergevin, and I believe Jeff Molson was his VP of hockey operations at the time. So that wasn't a good combination. It's good to have cooks with different backgrounds that are whipping things up in the kitchen.
Yeah, no, they're doing it right. It's more of a melting pot. Like,
I think so too. I honestly like what they're doing, and there have been mistakes here and there, but that's fine. I think one of the things that he's doing is that he's sticking to his long-term plan. If we look at Bergevin, he probably did much better than most people assume. He got a really bad rap after he left Montreal. He left on bad terms, and he treated legends poorly, but he actually got quite a bit of success compared to the previous years. But there was no long-term plan, whereas right now there's a long-term plan, and that's very, very important.
I agree. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys, and it's amazing. I've never seen numbers like this on the channel, and it is thanks to Mark probably retweeting it. I'm going to say that, but I do appreciate everybody showing up here. It's still early. We got 2 hours and about 10 minutes left in the trade deadline, so should we receive any news on any Canadiens players, we'll all be on top of it, including Mark. So be sure to stay tuned to his Twitter, his MontrealHockey.com, or Montreal Hockey. What is it?
Montreal Hockey Now.
Thank you, because maybe if I could make the screen bigger so I could actually read it. There we go. So MontrealHockeyNow.com. Mm-hmm. And I just want to thank...
Real quick, they kept 50% of Toffoli's contract. I
saw that come through.
So
I was going to bring it up.
He leads the Devils in scoring. He led the Habs in scoring. He led the Flames in scoring. Man, this guy's a victim of his own success. So, yeah.
Devils have retained 50% on Toffoli and trade to the Jets. That's from Pierre.
Their top goal scorer. Yeah. 50% for a third round pick. Wow. Oh,
that's pretty wild, man. But,
it goes to show when the Habs are ready to move, they can make deals like that. You know what I mean? That's the other option. So keep that in mind for down the road.
That's the other thing too. I was gonna mention this earlier, but I'm like, I don't think we've actually had like an exciting trade deadline that the Canadiens added in 10 years since we added Thomas Vanek.
Yeah, for Kohlberg. Oh, but don't forget, there was a year they got Andreas Martinson, Stephen Ott, and
Dwight King.
And I was on TSN 690 with Connor McKinnon at the time, and I remember just ripping into them. And I got Marc Bergevin was furious at me, because I said they added nothing. They made their team worse, and he absolutely ripped me apart. So fair enough.
And then you were right. So it's okay.
Yeah, but I'm wrong as often as I'm right. Thanks for having me on, Drew. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. My pleasure. My pleasure. Marc Dumont, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all again for tuning into this show. It was a lot of fun. We're not done yet. Like I said, there's a couple hours left, and I'll jump back on the channel should anything break from the Canadian side of things. But in the meantime, Marc, it was a pleasure to do this for the first time. Would love to have you back on.
I will never come back on. Anytime, let me know. And thanks, everyone in the chat. Really appreciate it.
I love the sense of humor. This is going to be a good thing if you come back on, I think. Whether you want it or not, you're coming. Okay. Yeah. Take that as you will. Take that as you will.
J'appelle la police. Okay, cool. Sounds
Coming
good.
back on the show. Coming back on the show.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you very soon. Cheers.